You've got the shinin.
You mean shining.
Shh, you wanna get sued?
With the slow but inevitable death of multiverses finally having occurred, the heroes and villains of DC Comics are finally free to be in popular video games once more. And very few games out there are quite as big as Fortnite, who themselves seem ecstatic to have this brand back. Between the re-releasing of old skins, creation of new ones, and even incorporating Robin and Superman in the most recent season of Fortnite, it seems like the relationship between DC and Epic is healthy and thriving. And all of that got me thinking. Fortnite just did a whole Star Wars themed season. They've done 2 Marvel themed seasons before and have a rumored 3rd one on the way. So, what if Fortnite did a DC Comics season? That idea rattled around in my head until I just wrote a whole note about it on my phone and then decided I have to make this my next video. So without further ado, let's get into it. What really struck me while making this was just how difficult it was to pick certain things out. Deciding what would stay and what would go was really hard because everything sort of feeds into itself. The skins feed into the story missions feed into the points of interest, and the skins, which feed into the items you can get in the season, which feed back into the story missions. Not to mention that all of that needs to appeal to DC Comics fans who have never played Fortnite before, and Fortnite players who have never read a DC comic before. It's a really tightrope to walk. And that's just coming from me, some Joe Schmo on the internet talking about a hypothetical. I don't have to answer to anyone from 2 different companies. I don't have to answer to an entire game design team who has to make this stuff actually possible. So yeah, just shout out to everyone at Epic Games for the job that they've managed to do with especially the collaborative seasons of Fortnite, because holy moly. In the spirit of all those difficulties, I wanted to include a segment here to talk about whatever got cut or disregarded from earlier versions of this whole idea. Consider it honorable mentions for characters, places, and items that didn't quite make it into the final version of this video. I initially thought to have this whole season be a kind of Justice versus Doom thing, kind of pulling from a lot of Scott Snyder's Justice League and death metal stuff. The Battle Pass characters would be split between superheroes and supervillains, each of whom you could find on the map. By doing quests for either one of them, you could heighten a Doom or Justice alignment for yourself. If you had a higher Doom alignment, then you could get more stuff from interacting with villains, better weaponry, tools, things like that, but vice versa, same with the heroes. There would be a Hall of Doom point of interest, a lot of boss fights and medallions that you could check out, but ultimately, it just became too much to juggle all at once, especially trying to get a good batch of heroes and villains in equal numbers. It just wasn't working out in the end. The Green Lantern mythos is one of the biggest parts of the DC universe, and it seems like they've been avoiding it for a while now on account of the flop that was the Ryan Reynolds movie. But we are sort of coming out of that and incorporating more Green Lantern stuff into, more public DC things. Look at Guy Gardner and the Superman movie and the Lanterns show coming out. In that spirit, I really thought about a bunch of different Green Lantern things that could be included in this season. At one point, I thought to have a yellow and Green Lantern central power battery as points of interest. I considered having power rings as items that you could pick up. They would provide a limited amount of flight. You hit one button, they create a wall to defend yourself. You hit another, they create these different construct attacks, just like a limited series, something like that. I considered having Sinestro and Hal Jordan's Green Lantern as skins in this past during that whole Legion of Doom thing. I even thought that Hal Jordan could have an alternate style of Parallax, and maybe if you go to the Green Lantern Central Battery, Parallax and Hal Jordan are locked in some sort of stalemate, and whichever one you help out ends up, aiding your alignment for one cause or the other. Another major hurdle was the Trinity. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman are such iconic, pivotal characters of the DC universe that you kind of feel like you have to incorporate them into something like this. The only problem is each of those characters already have skins of their basic outfit in the game. So how do you incorporate them in here while also making it some distinct alternate version of them? I considered maybe having them be pen and ink styles of their first appearance looks. First appearance Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman. Maybe you could toggle the pen and ink styles on them. Maybe Batman could be the Neil Adams Batman, something like that. I don't know, but just that didn't feel right. I thought about including the absolute versions of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, which would make more sense, especially once you see where, what direction I have this season going in. But I don't know. Ultimately, I just didn't think they would fit in enough with like other just mainline DC characters, so I went against that as well, and ultimately, none of those three are in the pass. Some other skins I dropped as I kept rewriting stuff was Blue Beetle, both the Jaime Reyes and Ted Kord versions of the character. Those will especially make sense once you see someone who made it into the pass. I also considered Supergirl and Hawkgirl, especially since Hawkgirl was going to be a lot more popular after the new Superman movie, but ultimately I decided, Superman already has all of his skins being like Battle Pass exclusives, so it'd be kind of messed up to make Supergirl also a Battle Pass exclusive. And Hawkgirl, I just wasn't quite as sure about. I had some fun ideas for her, but I just don't think they really fit in with everything else, and I had to drop her in favor for other characters. The last hero I considered was Wally West's Flash. He would have had his regular Flash outfit and then his Rebirth outfit. I also considered having Reverse Flash in here as a skin during the whole like Justice League versus Legion of Doom thing. But, ultimately the Flash ended up getting really phased out as things went along. The only villains and the last of the characters I ended up scrapping were Cheetah, Scarecrow, Captain Cold, and Bizarro. Like I said, a lot of Superman stuff is already Battle Pass exclusive, and one Superman villain will be making it into the Battle Pass, hint hint, nudge nudge. Captain Cold, he had to go once Flash and Reverse Flash went. It was either going to be Reverse Flash or Captain Cold with Flash, but like I said, Flash went, those two went. Scarecrow and Cheetah really made it into the running for the longest time there, but ultimately I was kind of just like, Scarecrow and Cheetah will be here, but Batman and Wonder Woman won't, so I'm not really sure about that. I'm not sure if they're popular enough to draw people to the pass if their related arch nemeses aren't there as well, But yeah, like I said, all four of those are like long-standing Legion of Doom members, so they were definitely like from that version of like this whole idea. A lot of those characters also came with ideas for items that you would use throughout the match. I thought it would be kind of cool if you could have a kind of fear gas bomb that you could like throw at someone and they would be like paralyzed with fear to allow you to get a few free hits in. I thought about including an nth metal wing kit so you could sort of like fly around with Hawkgirl's wings, maybe use her mace as well, and like you could have some sort of big like crash down attack with the two of them when you have them each equipped. Speed Force infused boots were an idea I really liked. They would just be a pair of boots that you would wear that would just permanently increase your movement speed and give you a couple like Speed Force dashes that would replenish themselves over time. I also considered Ted's BB gun just because it's kind of a fun little gizmo. I also considered the Scarab. It was, it's cool, but ultimately I just, Beetle got scrapped and just all that got scrapped. I don't know. None of it was making it in, And the final scrapped ideas were having Arkham Asylum, the Daily Planet, and Star Labs as locations on the map. Arkham, it could have been kind of cool and spooky, maybe have like a whole boss fight with Scarecrow, but, Scarecrow, he got scrapped with the Legion of Doom, Batman's not here, so why have Arkham? It's a similar situation with the Daily Planet. I thought you could meet Supergirl here, you could fight Supergirl if you were working towards Legion of Doom stuff, but then the Legion of Doom stuff got scrapped. And, why have the Daily Planet here if Superman's not going to be here? Star Labs I considered keeping in because it's not as Flash related as it is in the show necessarily. It went between being one established location and several like small satellite Star Lab locations that you could find around the map. But ultimately I just didn't like that as much. I had another idea that I liked a little bit more that you'll see later. But yeah, Star Labs, it was, one of the final things to get scrapped. So yeah, I'm sorry if you're a fan of any of those scrapped ideas or characters. Hey, maybe you can, think up your own, DC Fortnite season and find some way to incorporate them in there. Go ahead and comment that down there now. I would love to hear that. That'd be absolutely fantastic. But with all those out of the way, we can finally get into what I believe is the cream of the crop, the best of the best. Here is my final idea for a DC Fortnite season. It feels so unserious to talk about Fortnite, like seriously, like getting into like the lore and story of Fortnite. I won't be messing with Fortnite's lore too much, you know. I don't know where the game will be at if and when they get to do something like this. So it's pretty self-contained and pretty simple, my whole idea for the season, right? So here it is. After a millennia of searching for the anti-life equation and just missing it, Darkseid hears about the 0 point from all the different DC characters coming in and out of it. A place that is just a never-ending time loop of combat and chaos where a bunch of, like, mysterious energies and center of the multiverse lies. That sounds like anti-life to Darkseid. So, naturally, he establishes himself on the Fortnite island, and now it's up to you and a bunch of heroes and villains from DC who followed him here to stop him. There'll be a few important locations for you to visit as you do that, chief amongst them being Apocalypse. Darkseid brought a piece of home with him, fire pits and all. Luckily, if you're looking for something a little more pleasant, the Hall of Justice is just somewhere else on the map for you to discover. There, you can discuss with other heroes and figure out how you're going to kick Darkseid and Apocalypse off the island using the 2 large monitor towers which have been erected at opposite ends of the island. And if you need to arm yourself on the way there, LexCorp has you covered. Out of 6 spots on the map, a random 4 in each game will receive a LexCorp cash drop. These caches will store all sorts of goodies in them, including one item I will get to later, alongside a lot of other high-value weaponry and consumables. So that's the story and those are the locations, but what skins will you get to run around them in? Well, our first hero in the Battle Pass is...
And you have no idea who I am, do you? Skeets?
Citizens of Metropolis, behold, Booster Gold! Traveling back through time from the year 2462 AD, Booster Gold has come to battle today's wrongdoers. Booster Gold, protecting his past to ensure your future.
Yes, Booster Gold, a hero that's popular, but not too popular, but is probably going to get a lot more popular with whatever James Gunn's got cooking up for him. I figured he would be the perfect entry pass character. You can see why I seriously considered Ted or Jaime being in the pass alongside with him, so you can get that classic blue and gold combo going. But yeah, Booster will have Skeets as a back bling, probably some sort of emote where Skeets will fly in front of him and take a picture or something like that. As for the pick, I don't know, it could just be a random like energy pulse from his suit or something, I don't know, random Fortnite pick. For his second style, I want him to have his just big, bulky 90s power armor. I think that would be a fun inclusion. I think a lot of fans would get a kick out of that. And for his glider, he'll just have Skeets fly from his back and into his hands, and he'll just hold on to Skeets as he floats down. After him, you'll get Green Arrow and Black Canary in the pass. We're kicking it up a little bit with some characters people will probably recognize a little bit more, at the very least from his CW show. The main Green Arrow skin will look something like his Rebirth outfit, while the secondary style will give him that classic Dennis O'Neil suit. Obviously, his back bling will probably just be a quiver of arrows, and his pick will probably be an arrow of some sort. I really want to reuse the boxing glove arrow, but I know that the Stephen Amell Green Arrow skin has that, so I'm not sure if we can do that. Maybe just some big, ridiculous arrow pick, or just a bow, something. I don't know, what the hell did they give Hawkeye? Give him something similar to give him what they gave Hawkeye, but in green. Yeah, there we go. As for gliders, I think it would be really cool if he like turns back towards the camera and shoots a parachute arrow or something like that. I think that would be really cool, very in character for him. It could be the arrow jet instead, but I think this would have a little bit more personality to it. Finally, for Oliver's emote, I would love for him to have one where he just pulls out a big pot of his iconic super spicy chili and just takes a big spoonful of it, just no problem. As for Black Canary, obviously her main suit has to be some sort of play on the classic fishnets and leather jacket look for her, that's a given. Her alternate style though, I'd love for it to be her hardly ever referenced 80s costume. It's hardly ever referenced for a reason, I do not want it to be like her main costume, but it's a nice like alternate look for her and something, you know? So I think that'll make for a solid edit style for her. As for the pick, I would love it to incorporate like her motorcycle in some way, shape, or form. Like it's just this big, like repurposed hunk of it or something with like the wheel at the end or something like that. Her back bling, I don't know, maybe more motorcycle bits, maybe just some basic like superhero storage bag, something or another. It's kind of irrelevant. Yeah, I'm kind of cheaping out here. Where I did not cheap out though was with the glider, because I want her to literally just start screaming and just have the force of her sonic cry just propel her through the air like Banshee from X-Men. As for emotes, you have plenty of options. You can have her do something with her martial arts, just a couple of basic like attacks and things like that. You could have her do her canary cry, maybe break a glass doing it or something like that. Or you could have something with her motorcycle. My choice out of those three would probably be the martial arts one, just a quick, flurry of moves and positions and things like that. But hey, comment which one you'd prefer. Next up is the first founding League member in the past, and that is Aquaman. Yes, we have the Jason Momoa iteration of the character in Fortnite already, but we do not have classic comic book Aquaman in the game yet, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to add him. Obviously, you need to add at least a member of the Core 7 in here, and I had already scrapped the Trinity and Green Lantern and Flash, and got to Aquaman. Not saying that Aquaman was my last pick. Martian Manhunter was technically my last pick, but I figured he wasn't popular enough. But I am a huge Aquaman fan, and I think he's a fantastic choice. I think given the popularity of the Jason Momoa movies, I think a lot of people have turned around on Aquaman, where they used to think he was kind of a joke character. I think a lot of people like Aquaman now, and that's great to see, and so I think he would be fantastic here. For his back bling, he could have just, some like shell with some, crustacean or fish or something or another in it. You could have Topo, the drum-playing octopus, something like that. I think the Jason Momoa skin might have that actually, so I'm not sure how available that is. But whatever, just something like that. Obviously, his trident would have to be his pickaxe, and for his glider, I would love to see his Seahorse Storm show up and have him ride it down to the battlefield. For emotes, probably just something real stern and solid, like him just like slamming the trident down, just making a big show of force, something like that. That would be really cool. As for his alternate style, I would love to see like the 90s like hook hand Aquaman. I'm not sure how that would work with like animations and everything, the hook hand. Maybe he could have like that weird like magic water hand he had for a bit, something like that. I don't know, but I would just love to see the hook hand Aquaman show up in Fortnite. I think hook hand Aquaman is one of my favorite looks for the characters. I know that might be a little odd to say. I don't know, how popular is hook hand Aquaman? I love it from the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, but whatever. Point is, it's rad. Really want to see it in the game. But hey, if you're going up against Darkseid and Apocalypse, you're going to need some new gods on your side. And after Darkseid, I don't think there's a new god more popular than Mr. Miracle and Big Barda. Scott would obviously just have his cape as his back bling. I think just some random Fortnite pick for the pickaxe. I genuinely couldn't think of anything. I know there are a few bits where you see him use like a sword in, like the Tom King Mr. Miracle book. I'm not sure if that's substantial enough to quantify for it, but I mean, hey, it's there. For his glider, he would throw out his arrow discs, which would attach to his feet and allow him to calmly glide down to the surface. And for emotes, I would love to have one where he just suddenly summons like a bunch of like chains and locks and things like that to him, and then just immediately breaks out of them, just, dripping with personality, 10 out of 10. For alternate styles, I keep going back between the Shiloh Norman iteration of the character and just like a more casual day-to-day look for Scott Free, like we see a lot in like the Tom King book. I like the look of the Shiloh Norman like costume more for an alternate skin. I'm just not terribly familiar with that character and his history and his story and things like that. But I'm just gonna go ahead and say, just on a visual level, Shiloh Norman skin for Mr. Miracle. Please do not tell me that Shiloh Norman ends up being a horrible person in the books and that I regret this decision. I should have googled more about him before making this video, maybe. For Big Barda, she'd have her armored and unarmored suit. She would have her cape as her back bling and her mega rod as a pick. I'm honestly not going to pick out a glider for her because I think the arrow discs that Mr. Miracle has can just be shared with her. I see her use them all the time in Mr. Miracle stories. I think that's fair to just give that to her. There's always that one skin that doesn't have a glider, For emotes, I would love it if she had one where a boom tube full of parademons opened up behind her and she just quickly beat them all back into it with no problem. I think that would be really fun, very in character. I think that would be really cool. And for the final character in the past, we have had a serious villain deficit going on so far, and who better to fix that than Lex Flippin' Luthor?
Oh, come on, it's Lex Flippin' Luthor.
I think people would absolutely love a Lex Luthor skin, especially after Nicholas Holt's performance in the new Superman movie. He was absolutely fantastic, just a absolute total hater. Plus, Lex Luthor has actually gone up like against Darkseid on like several occasions now that I think about it. So he fits in here really well. I like the inclusion of Lex Luthor here. His first skin that you get, I would love for it to be like his classic Super Friends look with the purple shirt and the big collar and the weird X strap thing across his chest. I think that would be really fun and cool. But obviously his second style would have to be his war suit. It's super iconic. Fans love it. I've been waiting to see it in live action for years. We haven't gotten it yet, but we can get it here in Fortnite. His back bling could just be a big thing of kryptonite or something. His pick, I would love for it to be just like the fists of the war suit, so that way he could wear that in like his kind of more like Super Friends outfit, and then maybe he has an emote where he armors up into the war suit. It's kind of hard picking out a glider for Lex because his two outfits are so drastically different. It's hard to pick out one that would like fit both of them, but I think if you just gave him like some big floating evil chair for him to sit in menacingly as he just nonchalantly plans some vile scheme, I think that'll work. I think that'll do just fine. Or you know what else would be cool? I literally just thought about this. Obviously, I had to cut the, Hall of Doom as a location, and I hated having to cut that, but maybe we could still incorporate it in here by having like just a little Hall of Doom just like show up and Lex could like surf in on it. I think that would work for, either one of those skins. It would let us get the Hall of Doom in here. Yeah, that is his glider. I would absolutely love to see that. So that's all of our skins, but who's the bonus character?
I have turned 100,000 worlds to dust, looking for anti-life, looking for those who robbed me of my glory. I will stride across their bones and bask in the glow of anti-life, and all of existence shall be mine.
Super or otherwise, you're merely a man, and I am a god.
I am entropy. I am death. I am Darkseid.
That's right, of course it's Darkseid. Who is it ever going to be aside from Darkseid? A few weeks into the past, you'll start unlocking pieces of the Darkseid set every 2 times you level up. That will include a skin of classic Darkseid, his cape as a back bling. Classic Darkseid's worn a cape before, don't worry about it. An emote of him just firing his Omega beams all around him, and a glider of him just stepping on parademons. There's like 3 or 4 parademons, and he's just walking on their backs, and when he steps off of one, it just flies ahead to the front of the line to get stepped on by him later. You may have noticed that I didn't list his pick, and that's because it is a dead giveaway to his alternate style, that being the Absolute Power Darkseid. This is a look that Darkseid briefly adorned in the Absolute Power special, wherein he forced the Spectre to merge with him in order to help him create the Absolute Universe. It is a really badass outfit, and I want to see more of it and stuff. I think this is a great look for Darkseid, and it's going to be his alternate look here. So, the regular version of Darkseid's cape will switch to this version with the hood, you'll get this whole skin, and the pick will be his giant freaking axe hand. Hi, Future Keenan here. I forgot to pick out contrails for everyone. So I'm just going to run through those real quick, and you are just going to pretend like I put them in the right place the first time. So for Booster Gold's contrail, the time stream in DC Comics is often depicted as this like array of like kind of rainbowy colors and things like that. So I think going with something like that, so it looks like Booster is like coming out of the time stream into the game, I think that would be really fun. For Green Arrow, he can just be followed down by like a volley of arrows or something like that. Black Canary, her first appearance has her like busting through this like hoop and stuff, and that's a piece of art that's been referenced a few times over the years, and so I think it would be very cool if her trail literally just had this hoop appear in front of her, and then she busts through it, and then it's, behind her. That would be really cool. Aquaman, he gets a little seahorse escort following him on the way down until Storm shows up. Mr. Miracle, I would love it if his trail was just like some sort of death trap or something following him around. I know there's like a lot of art depicting him on like some sort of trap that's on like rails or something like that, like a roller coaster. So maybe you could have some sort of like roller coaster track under him with a bunch of like axes and flamethrowers and things like that showing up. Big Barda, this is one of my favorite ideas for a contrail. It's just a boom tube. It's just an open boom tube just right behind her, you know, so it just looks like she's just boom tubing into the match. For Lex, he can maybe have some of those like LexCorp caches like following him down like you'll see around the map. And then for Darkseid, he can just have like a company of parademons behind him. And then if you got the parademon contrail and the parademon glider on, then the ones in your trail become the ones that you step on. Like they like fly ahead of you into position for you to walk down them. I think that would be really cool. So there you go. Got that all cleaned up. And remember, if anyone asks, those were in the right place the first time round. But hey, you know where you'll be and you know what you'll look like, but what special items will you have to play with this season of Fortnite? First, there's Green Arrow's Arsenal, a basic quiver and bow set that'll work like other bow and arrows have in Fortnite, where you have to first aim them, and the longer you draw it back, the straighter your shot becomes. But once fully aimed, this bow will allow you to pick from a few different little modifiers. The first modifier is Boxing Glove Arrow, which damages an opponent a little bit more and sends them back a little bit. The next option is an Explosive Arrow, which, well, it explodes and causes a lot of pain and damage. And the final modifier is an Ice Arrow, which will freeze your opponent briefly, giving you a few moments to move in for the kill. Pick no modifier, and you'll just shoot a regular arrow, which will still damage, but, you know, just not as much as the other ones. Alternatively, one of the modifiers could be like a grappling hook arrow, allowing you to like rappel to locations, giving you a bit more mobility. I would love to see like the craft benches come back into Fortnite, into just like the regular season stuff. I thought that was really fun, gave your weapons another level of customization. Maybe if those got reintroduced, or if they got reintroduced in this season, you could go to a mod bench and like decide if you wanted like, you know, a grappling hook arrow or one of the other ones and trade them out, something like that. That could be really cool. Going alongside the Green Arrow arsenal, there's also the Canary's Cry, a choker that when worn gives you all the combat and metahuman abilities of Black Canary. Basically, when you hit the right trigger, it would unleash a flurry of kicks and punches which would devastate an opponent at close range. But if you hold the left trigger, it'll allow you to charge up your Canary Cry, which will blow back an opponent, do damage to them, and destroy structures around them, depending on how much you charge it. You'll also be able to find Aquaman's Trident. Hit the right trigger and you'll throw it at an opponent before it dissolves into water and returns to your hand. Hit the left trigger and you'll spin the trident quickly, blocking any incoming fire. If you need an item that gives you a little bit more mobility though, you could pick up Mr. Miracle's Arrow Discs. I imagine these would work a lot like Light Rider's Wave Cube, allowing you to freely and quickly glide and fly around and things like that. I think they'll just also come with a mild defensive capability of when you're not gliding with them, you can throw them at an opponent. They won't do much damage, but they'll do just a little bit to them and coming back to you, like a boomerang. You can also pick up Big Barda's Mega Rod to unleash a flurry of close range attacks and a devastating shockwave blow. You'll also be able to find Lexosuit Skeletons, which will provide a limited amount of flight and devastating energy attacks. Obviously, a lot of the Lex Luthor stuff in this season is very heavily inspired by a lot of the Iron Man stuff in the Doomed season. In my defense, the Lexosuit would have a much greater emphasis on the destructive capability of the energy blasts it has. It wouldn't be able to fly around as much as the Iron Man suit or the War Machine, equipment would, but it would have, a lot more offensive capabilities. Basically, just imagine it as like the Prime War Machine jetpack with like the Doctor Doom Arcane gauntlets. Maybe tone them down a little bit, but generally just kind of splashy, destructive blasts like that, Now, the last item can only be acquired by defeating the Darkseid boss in Apocalypse, which will be difficult. He'll fire Omega Beams at you and do a bunch of other attacks, as well as summon a bunch of Parademons, which I imagine would be just kind of what the basic grunts this season would look like. But if you do manage to defeat him, he will drop 2 unique items. First is the Darkseid Medallion, which will allow the medallion holder to take advantage of everyone's fear and aggression the same way Darkseid does. anyone who attacks the medallion holder, or anyone who the medallion holder attacks, is instantly marked to anyone in a nearby radius. And while marked, they take extra damage. I can't decide if that's horribly broken or if that sets up a really cool high-risk, high-reward scenario. Whatever, I'm rolling with it either way. The second unique item he'll drop will be the Omega Force. This will appear in your character's hand as basically just a spinning red Omega sign with black and red Kirby crackles all around it, but it will give you the power of Darkseid's Omega Beams. Now, to make them totally not broken, they can't just instantly destroy anyone they target, but they are still pretty useful. Once aimed at an opponent, you have to give it a second to lock onto them. Once locked onto them, the Omega Beams fire a continuous blast of mild damage to the opponent. The Omega Beams will only stop when you let go of the trigger, it hits a cooldown that it takes a while to get to, or they get eliminated. Downsides of the Omega Beam: A, it takes a little while to lock onto them, and B, while they are firing, you move at a much slower rate, leaving yourself open to attack. But once locked on, the Omega Beams will stay locked on to your opponent, and will deliver a pretty devastating amount of damage as they do so. Hi, Future Keenan here. A little bit less of an intro, I'm kind of strapped for time at the moment. But I got to halfway through editing this video when I realized that a lot of my skin choices were a bit homogenous, to say the least. I mean, out of the 8 available skins, 4 of them are blonde white people. All of the female skins are romantic interests of another male character in the past. So yeah, I felt like some of that needed to be reworked. I didn't want to cut a lot of the stuff I'd done out because it was very difficult to edit this all together, and everything sort of fed into, one thing, the skins, the items, etc, etc. So I figured the best thing I could do is just finish editing the video I had, and put this extra little segment at the end as an addendum to, some of the Battle Pass skins. So here's the trade-off, right? We're keeping Booster Gold, Big Barda, Mr. Miracle, Darkseid, and Lex Luthor. But we are going to drop Green Arrow, Black Canary, and Aquaman. In their place, I'm going to include Batwoman, Zatanna, and Jon Stewart's Green Lantern. Batwoman helps to fill some of that gap left behind by the Trinity. I mean, hell, that's how she showed up in the first place. Batman was gone during this whole 1-year period, and she showed up, so she works pretty well in here. Her 2 styles are obviously her as Batwoman and her as Kate Kane. Her back bling, her cape, her pick, some random Fortnite bat pick something or another. Her contrail can just be bats. I don't think that Batman actually has a trail like that, so yeah, just give her some bats. Maybe they have some sort of red tint or accenting about them. Just kind of go with her color scheme. For an emote, I think it would be cool if she had something highlighting some of her detective skills and stuff. Maybe she picks up a clue and starts analyzing it. As for a tool in-game you can find related to her, I think it'd be cool if there was a bat smoke bomb. You throw them on the ground like a grenade, and they just create a massive area of smoke, blinding all of your opponents within it and marking them so that you can see them and find them in all the chaos. Next up is Zatanna. Obviously, her alt styles will be her regular Zatanna costume, and then the George Perez kind of Justice League outfit she had for a while there. I think that'd be a kind of fun, kind of retro look for her. Her pick can just be a magic wand, her back bling, some magic trunk full of props or some weird magic creature. That'd be pretty cool. She could have an emote where she reaches into her hat for something and maybe a little portal opens up behind her and her hand comes out of it. She taps herself on the shoulder or something fun like that. For a glider, I think she just whips out her hat and just a bunch of doves come out of it and maybe have some sort of rope attached to them or something, so the doves are coming out of the hat and you're sort of using them to glide down. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, Zatanna's really cool. She adds another female character to the roster, and she adds a bit of a magic aspect that we were sort of lacking beforehand. So I think she's a wonderful pick. And Jon Stewart's Green Lantern. Hey, look, we got Green Lantern stuff in here after all. He sort of fills in that founding league member role. Yes, I know that the founding Green Lantern in the comics was Hal Jordan. Shut up, I like Jon Stewart more. Obviously, his main skin is just going to be him in his regular Green Lantern outfit, but his alt style will actually be pretty thematically relevant with all the New God stuff going on here, because Jon recently in the comics got a whole power boost from the Source Wall when he became the Emerald Knight. He was boosted by this thing called the Godstorm. I think he actually still is in the comics right now. I don't know, I'm not entirely clear about that. But the point is, it's pretty relevant to a lot of the stuff going on in this season. It's a cool alternate look for him. You know, I see a lot of art with him here depicting him with like this sword or some type of sword. So that's his pick, you know, just some sort of like green energy construct sword for him to use. For his back bling, it would have to be an actual Green Lantern, like charging battery. Maybe in his emote, it can even go from his back to his hand, and he can obviously use that to recharge his ring. For contrail, I think it would be cool if he just had like some Green Lantern rings following him down there, like they're about to, you know, pick new lanterns or something. And for a glider, you really have a lot of options with John. You know, you could have just like any Green Lantern construct used to help him fly down. I don't know, maybe just have some basic helicopter blades come out or something. But yeah, and then for items, maybe my idea for a Green Lantern ring could make it into the game. Like I said, you may hit like, you know, the right trigger and you shoot a beam of Green Lantern energy. You hit the left trigger, you create like some kind of walls. Kind of like the earthbending abilities from like the Avatar stuff, where it has defensive and offensive capabilities. Maybe this one just also lets you fly or something, you know? So yeah, a bit of a last minute addition with all these, but I honestly like this lineup a little bit more. It's a little bit more diverse, both in the selection of characters and in what those characters each represent. Zatanna gets a bit more magic stuff, Green Lantern a bit more space stuff, things like that. I think this is an excellent shakeup. Alright, back to Past Me and the outro I've already recorded now. So there you have it. That is my pitch for a DC season of Fortnite. Obviously, there's tons of stuff I wish I could have fit in there, like things with the Flash or Hawkgirl. There's characters that I'm looking at in retrospect. I'm like, God, I wish I could have fit Zatanna or someone like that in there. Obviously, it's not perfect. There's a lot of stuff from DC Comics that gets left out, like some of the bigger League members and things like that. I don't know, but, you know, regardless of, you know, issues like that, by and large, I think I'm very happy with how it's turned out. I like the way it looks. I like the sound of a lot of the different like gear and skins and locations and stuff. I think it's very good. I would absolutely play this season of Fortnite. But what about you guys? Would you play it? Go ahead and give a comment, let me know. And while you're leaving that down there, you might as well give the video a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you get notified when new videos come out. Speaking of which, I am very sorry about the wait between my last video and this one. Like I said, I was working on a Ben 10 one, but just got all sorts of thrown off, and yeah, sorry about that, really bad, gonna try being better about that. You know, I thought about making another Marvel-related video, maybe about like Tokon Fighting Souls, but, you know, I've made a bunch of Marvel videos already. I want to do more DC stuff. I don't want to be known as like a Marvel Rivals channel necessarily, so hence, here we are, and I really like how we've turned out with this. Yeah, thank you guys so much for your patience, super appreciate it. That being said, I'm Keenan Savage, and I'll see you guys next time.